Well, welcome back to the Finding Something Real podcast, friend. I've got a crazy dog in here. My light is acting crazy and my printer's not working. I hope you're having a great day. We are happy that you are listening to the Finding Something Real podcast, where life is real. And please ignore the dog. The question we wanted to talk about today is, how do we stop comparing ourselves with others when it comes to our physical appearances? How or what do we do to balance the desire to be healthy in a world that is obsessed with more? How do we live with confidence and appreciate the body we see when we look in the mirror? How do we walk in who we were designed to be? Let's talk about some of that today, shall we? Welcome back to the Finding Something Real podcast, friend. This is your host, Janell Wood, and you are listening in for season 7, where we talk with young women from various backgrounds about their faith journeys and allow them the space to ask some tough questions about life and God and Christianity. And today we're recording an episode with and for my sweet friend, Olivea. I highly recommend for you to go back and listen to some of the other conversations, including last week's episode, where we sat down and had a conversation about following Jesus with best-selling author Francine Rivers. And here's a short clip from my first conversation with Olivea. Do you feel like your internal voice is kind to yourself, or do you feel like you've got a mean streak in the way that you treat yourself? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's been a battle for sure. I think as I was younger, it was really rocky. Like, I think my self-worth was really, like, oh, you're not beautiful. Like, you're big. Like, no guy will like you. Because I never had a boyfriend in high school. But a lot of my friends had boyfriends. And I never saw, like, guys look at me. But I think about it now, and I think it has to do with my confidence level. And then, and as I got older and a little bit, like, figuring out who I was. And also, too, with my relationship with Jesus, I've kind of, like, oh, well, like, I am beautiful. But sometimes it's hard for me, like, I do feel like I'm beautiful on the inside because, like, my personality and my, like, love for people around me and my cooking. But sometimes, like, my physical appearance, it's still, like, hard to accept. But I definitely feel like it's not as harmful as it was when I was younger. Like, I definitely try to help myself feel beautiful, but sometimes there's definitely still those days where it's just the enemy and these negative words are still attacking at me.
And Olivea's back today. Olivea, how are you?
I'm good. A lot of stress going on, but I mean, it's life, so.
Yeah, you have a dog climbing on you too. I
I don't know if you
earlier.
can see her. Oh, yeah, she's looking at me, but I don't know if you can see her. Yeah, she's just chilling.
And stress because you've got some big life changes happening.
Yeah, I'm moving. So, and this is like my first big girl move other than college. So, yeah, it's been stressful, but it's, whenever I'm stressing out about something, like the next day or the next few days, like it gets taken care of. So I'm like, okay, Lord, I know you're taking care of it. So why am I stressing out? And then there's some other subject I'll stress out about. And then it'll be the cycle again. So, yeah.
That's relatable. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it's just life in general, but there we go.
Yeah. I love that you're here though in the midst of all of this, because I know you're like moving next week, which is crazy, right?
Yeah, like half my room's naked, but the other half I'm like, I don't even know if I have enough time. But I mean, I plan on coming on the weekends and stuff, and when I have off to still grab the rest of my stuff. So
yeah. But you work 2 jobs today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I have 2 right now, and then I have 1 lined up. So I'm hoping. I don't really want to get another job, but I have a feeling I will. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, you're a hard worker. I know now, since this is going to be airing in a few weeks from now, your episodes have just started airing. And you had expressed to me that you were a little nervous about the first one going out. And I didn't screen this question before. I'm asking it right now. But what was it like having an episode go out that was dedicated to you? Did you hear about it from your friends? Have you just ignored it completely? Did you take a listen? What was it like?
I haven't completely ignored it. I honestly haven't like watched it, but only because I think it's just awkward seeing myself. But I'm also like, it's God's will. Whatever happens, happens. And it was like the very first thing I've done anything like that. So I think I was just kind of nervous. And I think sometimes it's just hard for me to be vulnerable with when I know people I don't know that are listening. And so I think that's one reason why I was kind of nervous. Like, oh my gosh, what if someone, I don't know. I get nervous. So I just was
Yeah.
kind of like nerve wracking about that, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
You're too busy stressing about other stuff to be stressed about this, right?
That's true. Yeah. Oh, Lordy.
Oh, well, I'm really excited, first of all, that you said yes and that we've had some great recordings together because I think we've had some really beautiful conversations. And I hope that you do hear from some friends. In fact, I even got a message the other day, I think on it might have been Facebook, saying, "Oh my goodness, I heard the voice and I knew it. I can't wait to hear the story." And so it was really, really precious.
That's sweet.
But I'm excited because we have a special guest today to talk about some things that came up in that first conversation, Olivea. Our special guest here is here to address. I'm pretty sure that dog's peeing over in the corner. It doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. But anyway, speaking of insecurity, I feel a little insecure about what's going to happen. That's fine. So all that to say, I'm grateful for the special guest today. I really, truly am, because you brought up some great topics about insecurity and struggling to feel confident in your own skin, which I think is totally relatable for any woman, especially any young woman growing up in and dealing with the ways of the world today. And today's guest was born and raised in Texas. She now finds her home in the east side of Washington with her husband Andrew. After receiving her BA in ministry and leadership and minor in writing in 2016, she served as a youth pastor in Washington State for 5 years. She is the founder of Cherish, a young women's ministry, helping girls of all shapes, sizes, and backgrounds navigate the journey of becoming the woman that God has called her to be. The heartbeat of Cherish Ministry is to be a community that helps young women face their daily battles, approaching topics with transparency and vulnerability while pointing them back to God's word. Topics such as body image, self-esteem, relationships, boundaries, and more. I'm so excited to speak with this guest. Welcome to the podcast, April Biondolillo. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a beautiful pronunciation of the last name. No one would know.
Now, just so people can appreciate the giftings here, because we're recording this late, how do you spell your last name? Because it's special.
This is the fun part. Okay. Biond, D as in dog, Olillo.
Yeah. So before we hit record, I said, how do you pronounce it? And then you told me how phonetically it's pronounced. And I have it in my notes, Beyond a Lillo. And it worked.
Hey, I'm telling you, I've had to learn. I inherited this name from my husband and had to learn some tricks to help people out. Especially when you're spelling over the phone, the L's and the I's. Like I get lost in the L's and the I's. So I'm like, I'm just going to change my last name. But it's okay. I'll stick with it.
Just stick with Beyond, because Beyond is a really cool.
Wow, that would be powerful.
I am so fascinated by your ministry and your story. So tell me all the things. Tell Olivea and I, like, how did this all come about? We'll talk to you more about your personal faith journey, but I want to hear, like, where did this come from?
Yeah. So I grew up in the belt buckle of the Bible Belt, is what I tell people in Texas, which just means we went to church all the time and I absolutely loved it. I loved being inside the church. I had great community, an incredible family, parents that just really demonstrated to me growing up what it meant to have a personal and intimate relationship with Jesus. So on the outside looking in, there seemed as if there wouldn't be any issues or struggles that I personally would face. But the reality was, starting at a young age, like we'll get into later, I just started to get bullied for the way that I looked. And so words are powerful, and those words carried weight over my life. And I constantly was faced with rejection. So those things partnered together really just made me feel convinced in the fact that, like, I didn't just have an issue in my life, I was the issue. And so I just began to wrestle with my identity, my worth, all of the things. And I say this all the time, but God is the only one that can create the plans that he has for you. The enemy can only imitate. And so at a young age, I started to fall for every imitation in a lot of different ways that we'll explore later. And I just felt the church covers so many things, and I love the local church. yet I also was hurt by the local church in the sense of there were so many topics for me as a young female that needed to be addressed. And I had no idea where to go for that information, how to reach out for help, because I was scared to do that. No one was talking about it. And if they were talking about anything with, struggles with how you view yourself or sexual struggles, it was typically in my age growing up geared towards the boys and not the girls. I was like, I'm not going to come forward and share where I'm struggling. So it just was really easy for me to learn in the church how to hide. And I think if there could have been a female leader or female representation that would have just shared where life was difficult, where they struggled, I think it would have changed the trajectory of my life. Now, I don't have any regrets of what my path looked like, but everything I do with Cherish Ministry is thinking of my younger self, of what she needed. And she needed a community of older women to come alongside of her and share the struggles, to champion her, to remind her of the truth, and just to be real. I think so often in the Christian world, we quickly, slap a verse over it and give some encouragement and move on. And I needed someone just to sit in the depths with me of this, the pit of the well, with me in those hard moments. And so Cherish is an opportunity just to meet with girls where they're at in hopes that they will discover a real relationship with Jesus that won't keep them where they're at, that they will walk in confidence and boldness of who they are and recognizing they don't need any external thing around them. It's everything that they need is right there within them. And you don't have to compare to the girl next to you. If she's winning, so are you. And just how to combat those lies when they come, because they do. It's easy to build yourself up when you look in the mirror and you like what you see. But on the days that the pimples are coming out, you've gained that weight, your hair's not, styled the way that you like, or fill in the blank, whatever it is, those are the days where it's really hard to say, man, I'm beautifully and wonderfully made and I am strong, I'm confident, when things are just not working out. So Cherish is a platform in which to reach girls everywhere and just where they're at and give them those tools to combat the lies and to walk out confidently who God has called them to be. So it's a little snippet.
What do you say to that, Olivia?
I like that. I definitely agree on because I grew up in church as well, and I definitely have gotten her a lot in churches and stuff. And kind of this winter, I got her a lot with this church that I kind of got pretty close to really fast, and then it just went downhill really fast too. And I definitely understand the struggle. And then on top of that, it is really easy to hide in church and just kind of get in, get out, and when you see other people struggling around you and you just dodge, uh-huh. Yeah, and I think that ministry is really important, especially for Christian women too, because in my opinion, men are supposed to be the leaders and men have that, but a lot of Christian women don't really have well, what's their place then, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I said before we hit record that I think you might be a kindred spirit, and just hearing your story, I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's why finding something real exists too, wanting something that I needed, an open place for conversations, to ask hard questions. And not that I didn't have loving people in my life who came alongside, but it's, you see that need and then you do something about it. But it's interesting that you landed at the end with saying that so that these girls can walk in confidence and fight against the lies, that are out there. Did you encounter some of that in following God's leading in this ministry? Because I know for me, that came up big time. Like when I started finding something real, I was like, who do I think I am? There were all those lies, the same lies that I was trying to speak into were the exact same lies that were ricocheting back. So I'm curious to know whether that was something that you found too.
No, absolutely. I think in so many different layers too. In one aspect, I'm a natural achiever. That's my personality, is I don't like to set out to fail in any way. And so if I do something, I want to go all the way at work, and do a great job. And so it's always been very humbling because the things that God has called me to, I've never felt qualified to do, like launching a nonprofit. I'm like, yeah, I have no clue what I'm doing. Like, what? I have to have a board. I have to ask people for money. Like, doing a podcast, like just all these things I had no, like, I don't understand technology. Like, I don't know how to fill out this tax paperwork. And that's just one aspect that I have felt, God, who am I to do this? Like there's got to be a better way, or just give me all the money so that I can hire all those people to do it. And I can just do what I feel like I'm good at, but it doesn't work that way, which I think is lame, but that's okay. So there was definitely that aspect of I have never felt qualified for anything that God has called me to. But one of my favorite lines is God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And so just realizing he's just asking me to show up with what I have right then and getting myself out of the way because it has nothing to do with me. Is I want to be like, oh, look at all the things that I'm doing. The Lord's like, that's not what Cherish is about, though. It's not building this platform for you to be seen. It's building a platform for other girls to be seen and for them to have that voice. So that was one aspect. But then you talk about the more you're putting yourself out there, there is that physical aspect of when I preach a message, like, and I look back at the videos, kind of Olivia, how you were talking about, like, I don't want to watch myself back. That's awkward. I also feel that, and getting caught up in like the physical appearance of, oh my gosh, my double chin is out, or why is my face so shiny in that video? Just like all those thoughts. And then taking that and comparing to, now we have social media. So it's like constant comparison of what she's doing in her ministry and what she looks like as she's leading her ministry. And, you can just like wake up in the morning and you see this girl's like already ran like a half marathon. Her house is all clean. She's made the set, fill in the blank. And you're like,
you just want to hate her. You just want to hate her,
I'm
don't
like,
you?
wow, I'm crusty and disgusting. And I think I have slobber all over myself. And, like, it's just, whatever it is, it's that always feeling like you're competing with yourself. And yet the reality is God doesn't ask us to do that, nor does he desire that. He just wants us to be with him. So I think in every aspect that I could have wrestled with myself, yes, I have. And 10 times harder, which is funny because I always told myself, oh, like once I'm married, then it's going to feel better. Once I, have this job, once I have this house, once we do that all the time, but none of it's real. Like none of those things have satisfied me. None of those things have, really filled the emptiness or that void. It's been, truthfully, when I'm on it, it's been my relationship with Jesus. That's the only thing that has ever satisfied me and motivated me more. So yeah, I mean, the comparison, the struggles, the insecurities, 100% there, even more the more you step towards what God's calling you to, because the enemy's terrified. He's like, oh no, she's actually getting it. And you would think that would be like more motivation. But if you're not on it, you're like, oh, I want to just stop. I just want to be done. Choose someone else. But here we are.
One more question about your personal journey. I'm sure we'll talk more about it. But I know for me, our first year of marriage was terrible because of exactly what you're talking about. Because even though I knew in my head, like my husband's not going to satisfy all my needs, he's not going to validate me to the point where everything's okay. I still, even though I could give lip service to it, the heart posture was still a little, right? There still needed to be some iron sharpening iron kind of thing. Did you encounter that too? Because I mean, when you do struggle with comparison and with, looking at the mirror and going, whatever, it can be really easy, I know for me anyway, to project that upon somebody else who I think owes me something, right? Did you ever struggle with that?
Yeah, no, I think that was first year of marriage. Everyone says it's going to be the hardest year. And it was, but not in the ways that I thought it would be. But it really is this, okay, two are becoming one. And that's hard. But then also, yeah, thinking, okay, I've been waiting. And that's kind of like something that the church painted a picture, whether they meant to or not. And it could have just been my interpretation of things. Sometimes it felt like everything was about getting married in the church, like once I'm married. And so I think there was this anticipation of like, okay, I'm married now. Now I can do all the things and whatever it is. And so there was a lot of placing my identity in marriage. And so I think over the years that has changed in realizing we are two very broken people coming together to do our very best and in very much need of a savior. And so I think luckily we had also like our premarital counselors, they stayed in the picture that first year. We were close by. So we got to have some really honest, candid conversations to help of like, we really needed to be pushing each other towards the Lord and not looking to each other to fill that, because I think that was the first year of like, I didn't realize I could lash out to this ability. I was like, oh my goodness, April, you need to calm down, And so I think it's just unmet expectations leads to disappointment. And I think there were just these expectations that I didn't even realize that I had or had been harboring onto until I started walking out and realizing this is just a human being and he's not going to be able to fulfill all those things, and we have to come together broken yet whole at the same time of like going to the Lord and resting in that. So yeah, there were some definite challenges and thinking he's going to be my everything when I'm having a hard day, but the reality is you can only go to the Lord for those things. And so that was definitely a learning curve, and it's definitely gotten better in realizing that. And now it's the question of, hey, have you spent time with the Lord today? And sometimes I'm like, I don't like that question because I know what that means, but I'm like, yeah, you're right. Let me talk to you later, and just pointing each other in that right direction for sure.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, Olivia, true story. When Brian and I first got together, he hated that I watched The Bachelor because I would compare him
Really?
to The Bachelor. I eventually had to stop watching The Bachelor. Now, everybody has their own struggles, but mine was comparing my husband with what I saw on, a very
Man,
expensively produced TV show and then going, why don't you treat me like that?
it's so real though with like all of the romance out there. I was literally just talking about that with my best friend of how we have these expectations because the books we read, the movies we see, and just the talk around us. And it's not to say that marriage is terrible and romance is out the window. It's just not reality. And because they're writing about it, based off of like an idea or a fantasy, it's not real life. And so they don't capture a lot of the whole love is a choice, not a feeling concept. They do love is a feeling, a lot.
Well, and I think too, like to add on that, kind of like the social media talk, like someone will post something fun or cute that their like boyfriend or husband did,
Mm,
and then it'll kind of be like, oh, well, they didn't do that for me, or something like that.
right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. What do you find, April, are some of the biggest things that young women are struggling with in terms of confidence and insecurity? What are the things that you
Mm.
keep seeing over and over as you work with young women?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times it's that they'll find that confidence with themselves, but then it is the immediate getting on social media and seeing what other people have, what other people have accomplished, what they're doing. Even today, I was just meeting with a young girl who's in high school, and it's just that same audience of, I don't want to call them like mean girls, but just like there's this status of like what you have to do to fit in and what you have to look like, how you have to interact, and uh, just having to perform to be a person that you really aren't. And it's exhausting to be that. And then you walk away still not satisfied, still not fully seen. So I think it's a lot of having to change the way they look, change the way they act, they talk, and getting caught up in things like it's all gossip all the time. And nothing is like deep in like what are you guys talking about? Like what's the value? Like what's helping you grow and develop? It's just not the forefront. And so I think definitely physical appearance is a big one because there's so much out there and put out there of like what's in, what's out, what your body should look like. And then I think just personalities, So I think it's the same things that we've seen before. I think it's just elevated because of social media, or I think these are things that I can talk to my mom, and I know she experienced this, but she didn't experience it to the decibel that maybe now a middle school or high school student or college young adult, experiences, because it's literally everywhere around them 24/7. And that, I think, is a really big detriment for those individuals today, of how to navigate the tools of, you don't have to be on your phone 24/7. You don't have to be on social media. You don't have to keep up with the trends, but there's these lies and thinking that you have to stay in the know. And it's kind of just like, I don't know, it's a cycle that you just can't get out of. Like, you have to know, what are they doing? What are they about? And the fact that you can look into someone's life and see so much, and really you're not even seeing anything true about their life, just the highlight reel. And you know that, but yet you get caught up in just that post. And so I think just the social media piece is very, very tricky to
Yeah.
navigate.
Yeah. Do you find that you're talking about identity a lot? And how do you speak into that? Because when I talk with young people, or I'm working with young people, I see that over and over again, of like the searching for like that solid ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
tricky.
I do. I think a lot of it stems from this place of loneliness. None of us want to be lonely. And I think I look back at the times in my life where it wasn't loneliness, it was learning I was alone with God. And I think we have to recognize that loneliness is really just a longing after God. I think it's our heart searching for something more, something deeper, but it's so foreign to be alone. It's like if everyone's out on a Friday night and you're in your room, like, you immediately are felt, feeling with like fear of missing out, the depression, the anxiety, the why am I not, like, all the insecurities. But the reality is like, maybe the Lord's trying to press you into something deeper that He has for you, that's going to be so much greater than being at that fill in the blank. And so I think a lot of times in culture today, it's like, well, I'd rather have bad friends than no friends, or a bad relationship than no relationship, because we're so terrified of being alone. But I think if we would recognize the beauty in being alone as a time to discover yourself. Like, I think all through my growing up, I struggled so much with codependency, whether that was the attention of a guy that I needed, or just having a friend that I could, in college, like, we would go to the cafeteria and I would never go if I didn't have a friend with me. I was like, if no one's going, I just won't eat, or like going to get groceries one day. Like, I just did not know how to be by myself and be comfortable and be confident. And it wasn't until the Lord moved me from where I was at to Washington, where I knew no one, where it was challenging. I think I cried myself to sleep every night because I felt so lonely. It's like, God, there's no friends. No one sees me. I just gone through a horrible breakup and I just felt like my life is over. Like, but yet I'm in youth ministry. Like, it should be exciting. And I learned how to be alone with the Lord. I learned who I was. Like, as cheesy as it sounds, like, I took myself out on dates. Like, I would go on hikes, like safe hikes where people were around. I wasn't not smart as a young woman, but I would go to a coffee shop, and buy a fun coffee and read a book, or I would journal. I'd write a blog. Like, I just started to find out what things I love. And in that, I discovered me. And so I think it was so purposeful for God to separate me from people, because I was finding all of my identity in others rather in what He had for me. And so I feel like if we haven't learned how to be alone, we're going to constantly struggle with holding on to things that we're trying to make define us, that never will and will only hold us back. But when we get to that point of, man, I can be alone with God and it's beautiful. And I don't know, Lord just met me every time in those moments when I really opened myself up to that. And now, like I said, I would rather be by myself with the Lord than in the wrong company. Like, I definitely want my people, but it's not something I'm dependent on. I don't have that struggle of like, I have to go to my husband about this. It's like, man, I need to go and get before the Lord. And that, I think, just is a maturing thing, something you learn over time. I wish I would have learned it sooner. And I see younger people learning it, and when they do, there's just a difference about them. It's not that they don't struggle; it's just they know how to struggle well, and they know where to turn to in the midst of that. So I think just the encouragement of, can you and do you know how to be alone with yourself and with God? And are you comfortable in that place? And if you're not, and that feels awkward or scary or challenging, then that to me would be, there's a growth opportunity, because the Lord really wants to meet you in that place. Because I think if you can't be with yourself and enjoy your own company, then you can't expect anyone else to either. I don't know if that's harsh, but that was my reality of like, I should probably love myself, you know? And I mean, that's biblical too, right? You can't love other people until you learn to love yourself, and you can't love yourself until you know how much God loves you. And so I think that was kind of the process that he kind of made me go on to learn so that I could do what he was calling me to do.
Hmm. Well, here's a practical follow-up
Yeah.
question to that. So let's say you take yourself out on a date.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just thinking of times I've attempted this before. I'm not, maybe this never happened. Okay.
Yes.
And let's say you go out to a coffee shop and you got your book and you got your nice drink.
Yeah.
And suddenly there's this cute little couple who come right in front of you, right?
Mm.
And all of a sudden that little feeling of like, you're alone. Nobody wants you. Why doesn't anyone want you? You know? Now, what do you do with that? What do you do with that?
Yeah, I think it's all about your mindset. Like, I think I walked into those settings, and I don't know if I necessarily know why, but I just, maybe after so many times of choosing it, I was so excited to go to my coffee shop and to have my book and to find a new place. Like, I just wasn't in that mindset. And it wasn't like, God, I'm never going to be open to, and this is something is our tagline in Cherish, and it's been what the Lord's helped me with, is to not search, but to cherish. And I think I was always searching for that. And when you're in that state of searching, I think you do see the couples in the coffee shop. You do see what other people have, because it's all that you're fixated on. It's all that you are allowing into your mind. And I think that comes down to like taking inventory of your thoughts. And when you take inventory of your thoughts, what things were you doing before you had that thought? You know, if I'm feeling, I'm not good enough, I just feel not qualified, or whatever fill in the blank is, and I was just scrolling through social media and I see all these other people in ministries that had, okay, so then I need to put some parameters around that. And it doesn't mean that I can't have social media at all. Like, I'm not saying you don't have to have it, you know, it's just you have to put boundaries on yourself, and you have to learn that. And it's not putting, boundaries are meant for ourselves, not for other people. And so I think that's really important too, of like, I had to learn, okay, there's these cool features on our iPhone where we can put a time frame on when I can and when I can't. And I have to be aware of, when am I most vulnerable in my thought patterns? You know, is it when I wake up, when I go to sleep? Yeah. So I'm not going to be on social media first thing when I wake up and at night. And then all of a sudden, I'm not even thinking about it during the day, because I've made the choice from the moment I wake up. And I think that's a big part, is that I would typically, before I go out, like, I'm thinking, I'm writing up a list of all the things that I'm going to do. And I just mapped it out. Like, I'm a planner. So I would just plan the whole day. And then I was excited to get to share with other people, like, hey, these are the cool places I got to see, the things that I got to experience. So I think I think those things will happen. I think absolutely you'll go into a coffee shop and you'll see the couple, or the enemy will try to whisper, you're alone, no one loves you, whatever that is. But I think if you wake up and choose to have the mentality and the mindset of, I'm excited, I'm ready for this, you know, then I think it helps frame the day better. I think it's guarding your heart, guarding your mind. I think we have to go into every day knowing the enemy's going to try to stop me today. The enemy's going to try to convince me that I am nothing and worthless and I have no value. So how can I choose right now, before I'm in that place, to combat it before it ever comes? I'm not saying I'm perfect at that by any means, but I think that would be the way to do it. And I feel like I can tell a difference when I actively choose that versus when I don't.
Mm-hmm. I like that a lot, because, you know, when you look in scripture, it talks about, you know, putting on the armor It's like preparing ahead of time.
Yeah.
And I can't remember which pastor I was listening to that said this. It was probably Tim Keller because I like quoting him.
I love Tim
But
Keller.
I know, I love him. He has some great stuff. But he was
Mhm.
talking about like, the time to prepare yourself for a battle is beforehand.
Yes.
Like when you're in the middle of it,
Too late.
it's too late.
Yeah.
And it says in scripture, resist the devil and he will flee from you.
Yeah.
And what I hear you saying is resist him before.
Yeah.
Resist him knowing that he will.
Right.
Knowing that when you go there, you will be tempted to start searching. I
Right.
love that. Cherish what you have here in
Yeah.
this moment. Like Olivia right now, you have this wonderful adventure before you.
Yes.
And I wish I could go back to my younger self and be like, go and cherish the moments
Yes.
instead of being like, I really don't want to be in this situation right now.
No.
Yeah.
It's so true. Because I think there's a lot of times where we feel like we're putting our life on hold for certain things to come to pass in our lives. And I think I did that for such a long time and is so grateful. Like, even like you, Olivia, just moving and just recognizing, okay, I needed to change. And like for me, it was the scripture that's in, I think it's Hosea 2. It says, I'm going to lure her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. I'm going to remind her of the days of her youth. And literally, the Lord brought me to Seattle, Washington. I'm in smack dab the middle of the woods, and it was beautiful. And he was reminding me of all the things he had spoken over my life as a young girl that I had misplaced due to, I need this relationship to work. I need these friends. Wherever they go, I'm going to go. And I was going to miss the very things he had for me because I had an agenda. I had an idea. I didn't know how to be by myself. And the good things that happened in that place alone is that he totally changed and transformed who I was and showed me the voice that he had given me. And it's so funny because my eyes were always so fixated on, I've got to have a boy, I've got to have marriage, I've got to have this thing. And I also want ministry, but I have to have this marriage. And the Lord was like, if you would just release it, I can give you not just both, but more. And I can speak confidently that he has done exceedingly abundantly more than I could ever think, dream, or imagine. And it talks about in Isaiah that behold, I'm doing a new thing. I'm going to make a way in the wilderness. And so I always tell people he drew me to the wilderness. But as I learned how to be alone with him and be confident with him and find myself in the midst of that, he absolutely made a way. Like I got to be a pastor. I got to help young people grow and develop as a single woman, like it was really awesome. Things that I thought were never possible. And the Lord just kept elevating me. I never had to ask for a mic. I never had to beg for a platform. He was just opening doors. And all I was doing was saying yes to him and saying, I want more of you. And it was just the thing I was chasing for so long in my life. I was running away from sin, thinking that's what it means to be a good Christian. And then I realized actually being a Christian is just, I get to run towards something. And so my purpose was so exciting. And yeah, there's real emotions and sadness of, but I want a relationship where I feel alone. Like there were those things. And so that is why, we just talked about what we did of, I had to learn to prepare myself that was going to be a reality of the things I was going to wrestle with and desires of my heart, that I also had to have faith and believe if God placed that desire, he was going to also fulfill it. I just don't know how and when. And I would have loved to know those details, but he did it when I was least expecting it and when I wasn't looking for it. And so I think that says a lot. I was so caught up in the things he was doing in my life that I wasn't looking to the left or to the right in what everything else was happening in other people's lives, and learning how to celebrate other people when those things are happening in their life and it's not happening for you, recognizing God has a different timeline for everyone. And that doesn't mean one is greater and the other is less. It just means he's doing different things in different people because he has different plans and purposes for each and every one of us.
What do you think?
It's a lot for me to process, but like a good thing though.
Yeah.
I definitely think that I'm kind of in the boat of what you were earlier in your life. Yeah, I definitely, so about a year and a half ago now at this point, I broke up with my boyfriend. We were together for about 2.5 years. And that first year, it was really, really, really hard for me to be alone. And and this last couple months has been where I finally kind of have felt peace and trying to get the enemies, feeling lonely and, you know, trying to find peace where I don't need a man to be fulfilled and the one passage, I can't remember if it's Corinthians or Colossians, but I think it's chapter 7, but the one really stuck out to me where it said, like, how can I remember how it's worded, like when you're married your viewpoint is on the world because you're focusing on like your husband and what does he want, and I need to make him happy. And then when you're single your viewpoint is more on Jesus because you don't have that person to like view the world, or I don't,
Oh, I
to
want
like
it's when
focus your,
Paul's talking.
yeah,
It's better to
and
be
kind of
single
like
than
you
to
don't
be
have,
married.
yeah, and you don't have that distraction and you have, your whole focus on Jesus when you're single. And so when I read that passage, it kind of was like, it was like V8 moment kind of. And it has been really hard for me,
Yeah.
honestly too, because, I definitely want to be married and I definitely like
Yeah.
want to be a wife. And it has been kind of hard because like I'll see on social media too, where like everyone's getting married and then now everyone's getting married. Now everyone's having babies.
Yeah.
And so it's just like really kind of like, oh man, Lord, like when is it going to be my time? But I try to like reel myself in and kind of be like, just because it's not happening now doesn't mean it won't happen.
Yeah. No,
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think one, you have to know too, it's like your feelings are valid. Like everything
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing is real. And I never want you to ever feel like you have to brush that off as if, okay, I just got to move on, and it's fine. God has a plan for me, and again, like I said, that's kind of some of the things I felt like there's a lot of that slapped onto my life. And I'm a big feeler. I'm like 99% feeling, 1% thought. So that was really hard for me to just move on. And so I think there is power in our feelings and you should feel it. But then I think it's, slowly working out of that place. And I similarly, like I was in a relationship for 2 years right out of college, like, and I had this idea of, okay, I'm going to date one person. That's going to be who I marry because my whole story is I struggled a lot with sexual sin. I was never given the attention by guys. So I never dated, was always rejected. And then boom, I get to college. Like, all my life is different now. I've got this boy pursuing me who is my best friend all these years. So I'm like, this is like redemption of the Lord. What a beautiful story. I've already written it, and then we break up and he breaks up with me and it's devastating. And now I'm angry at God for giving to me what I thought was a gift and then taking it away, and there's so much scripture that talks about like our God's a good God. He's not going to give a gift to take away. And I'm like, you just did it. Like that was my gift. And I think I've seen this picture before. I'll try to explain it because I don't have it, but it's Jesus and he's giving this little girl, he has his hand out and he's reaching for her teddy bear that she has. She has this tiny teddy bear and she's like, I don't want to give this to you because obviously she loves teddy bear, but behind his back, what you can't see is an even larger teddy bear. And so I think it's just, he has such cool perspective because he gets to see end to beginning where we only get to see beginning to end. And so it would be really nice to know what he sees. But I think it's just that relationship of trusting him that he cares about you and he sees the feelings that you're experiencing and he knows it. And you're not just this, okay, hurry up, let's move on, let's go to the next thing. He encourages you to feel that. And I think he also is like, he's sorry that you are in those feelings and experiencing that. But I think he also has so much more. But I mean, I have so many of my friends that are in their 30s and still waiting, and okay, God, when is it going to be my turn? And it's hard, but I think in the waiting seasons, that's when it's really easy to settle, to compromise, to justify. And it's the time where we have to not hide and live fully of like, okay, that's just one aspect of my life and I don't want to waste all my time or just wait in this place for this thing to happen to then go. That's why I love that you're moving and you are like where you're going on this adventure, and just like keeping it open of like, okay, God, like here it is, this empty canvas. what do you want to do with it? And so I think one, validating your feelings, that is a really hard place to be in. And if I think on it long enough, I can remember just how challenging that was. But at the same time, in the midst of that, like the Lord was doing so much refining work in me that sometimes I miss those seasons, because as hard as it was the most growth I had ever experienced. But there's no like quick speed up the button, fast forward. You just have to walk through it, and it's how we walk through it. And you never know the story that will come out of it, of how you get to encourage the other girl that's also experiencing what you're going through, which is so cool that you're on this podcast and being vulnerable in your story, because that just allows them to be heard and be seen, and to also vocalize, okay, and this is what I needed at this age, is someone to tell me like they were struggling too and things were difficult, or the honest thoughts they were thinking. So I think you're doing awesome.
Hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I definitely think I'm definitely in the season where I'm kind of learning, little things like, okay, like a little thing like this summer I realized I love swimming, and I
Mm.
never really figured that out until this summer when I like pushed myself to go swimming by myself, which
Wow.
beforehand I'm like, I'm never doing that. But then now I love going swimming by myself and I
I
enjoy
love
like the
that.
activity and also too another thing, like growing up, I used to hate country music, but in this whole like season, I went to a concert and like now I'm like obsessed with this certain artist and I'm like, why do I like country now? Like this is just so weird, and just, discovering things about myself that I didn't know. And also too, like when I was with my ex, like I felt pretty good in my relationship with Jesus, but like now that I look back at it, like I
Mm.
wasn't where I thought I was.
Yeah.
And I feel like now I'm like stronger. I mean, of course I'm not
Yeah.
perfect, and of course like
Right.
every day, I don't always like, be the picture perfect Christian, but or I
Right.
fall short, but I feel like I have like a better grip of like God's voice to me,
Right.
and I feel like if I didn't go through that breakup, I wouldn't have gained that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, mhm. And it's also really nice too, because in my family, I'm the only one that's not married. And so it's
Mm.
kind of hard to kind of talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Because I know that they'll listen, but it's kind of like you're not really in the same situation as me. So it's kind of
Right.
like, but I have like two really good friends that are around my age and are in the same like season too. So it is nice to have someone we can like, talk about
Yeah.
boys with, but then the craziness. But then it is also too to like have friends to like lean on and understand we're, being
Right.
single and we all want godly men. And so it's nice to have that too. But it's also
Yeah.
nice to just be alone and kind of go through that struggle with God and just
Absolutely.
like a few days ago, I went over. Have you ever been to Chelan?
I have not,
Okay.
which is sad. I
Uh
know.
huh.
Now I'm coming. Don't
Now you're
worry.
coming over for a visit.
So I just went over to one of my little favorite spots. Like I love sitting by the water and just kind of like
Mm.
soaking it in and looking at the views. And so there was one. I think it was on Sunday actually. I just sat by the water and just it came to my head and I just was like over stressing and worrying. And all of a sudden, like, so I love birds. And so all of a
Mm.
sudden, like, this little bird just comes up and just starts chirping at me and looking at me.
Wow.
And it suddenly felt like it was God telling me, like,
Yeah.
everything's going to be okay. Uh
Mm.
huh.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. It was a cute little bird. It wouldn't stop, like, tweaking or chirping. It was really cute.
But I think those are
um,
like the adventures that you get to like be excited for, like the fact that you're talking about like discovering swimming, of like, oh, I could never. And I think this is that time of your life where it's like all the things that you thought could never, or you normally would say no to, it's like, try it, why not, discover what you love and discover what you don't love, and set new challenges. Like for me, I got really into running, and I started running half marathons, but it felt exciting because it was something for me on my own. And I think that was important. And then it's also important of, yes, delving in with your community, but it's you making those decisions. Or maybe it's, hey, I'm going to start hosting a group, like once you get settled in your new place, it's like, can I start a small group and find other women to join with me. And hey, I want to go through this book on this topic with other people. Or, I think serving, like just getting involved and finding things to fill that time. Because I think a lot of the times it's just we don't know what to do with our time. And so then that's when our thoughts run. And I think if we keep our mind busy with the right things, then all of a sudden we're not even recognizing that we're not focused on those things as much anymore. But
I like that.
I want to ask you one more question before we get to the final question here. And Olivia, if you have something that you want to ask too, feel free. But April, I guess I feel like I would be remiss not to ask something along these lines. So we live in a world where we constantly feel like we're not enough.
yes.
Whether it's the image in the mirror, whether it's looking at the social media feed, whether it's, just walking along the beach, whatever. It could be in any shape, form. We all experience that. I think it's a universal experience, not just to women, but to anyone. We all feel like there's something missing, right? The Bible says we need Jesus. And that feeling of not enough, right? We've got a gap. The world's response to that, and I see it over and over, is you are enough. You are enough. You are enough. How do you balance the Imago Dei with the fallenness thing? And how do you share the gospel when you are speaking and sharing with women who already feel a lot of that I'm not enough? How do you point that out, that is that desire for the Lord? And I just would love for you to share the gospel right now for anyone listening who maybe doesn't know Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a real problem, a real need.
Yeah, I think a big thing is, forming relationships with people right where they're at. I think I'm going to go in a circle here, but when I first moved from Texas to Washington, I just grew up like quoting the Bible. Like it was very normal. Like we did like Bible drills. Like I knew scripture, but I didn't know scripture. And so when I got to Washington, there was a lot of, I would say, like an unchurched people group. And so these young students were asking me questions. I was like, I have no idea, because those are hard questions that no one's ever asked me. Like I just believed because it was normal to believe and it felt natural to believe. And I never had really gone through any severe traumas or struggles to have to wrestle in that regard. But I think the more I talked with individuals there, and even in my time, I was the director at the Women and Children's Shelter for the Union Gospel Mission for 2 years. And even working with the women there, it was realizing, yes, the Bible is powerful, but sometimes we don't start right there. And I think Jesus did such a beautiful example of he like illuminated the truth, but he came in a way that was just real, went out of his way just to meet with people and to hear them and to affirm them. And I think sometimes we rush because maybe we don't have the time to sit and listen with people and to hear them. And so sometimes I think it's out of our culture and just we rush in everything. And so it's like, okay, I don't want to listen to you go on and on and on. Let me just tell you, this is the truth. I said my stuff, and it's like I can walk away at that point. But I think Jesus did such a beautiful job of he sits with us. He sits with us in our mess, doesn't even recognize it as a mess. And he did it time and time again with the woman caught in adultery, the woman at the well. He just, and specifically, I'm very drawn to the stories of God or Jesus interacting with the women in the Bible, because at that time in culture, women were like the very bottom of the totem pole and sometimes treated worse than animals. They had no rights in any way. And yet, Jesus chooses to reveal himself for the first time to a woman, and he came to rewrite the narrative for women and give them space and a place. And so I think the same is today, is helping women understand how seen and valued they are, but I think just meeting them where they're at and taking the time to build that. And that could mean it takes 6 months. I think discipleship is beautiful, but it's a lot of work, because it's doing life with people. And we're not very good about doing life with people. We kind of just share what we need to get by. But I think I don't know, there's just something about certain people where you come into the presence of them and you just know like they're going to sit with you and they're going to ask the questions, and it's kind of like uncomfortable because we're not used to it, but then it's this beautiful thing because well, you can start to tell that someone genuinely cares. So I think in sharing the gospel message with people, I think it's just meet them where they're at. Ask them about their story, what makes them them, what are their struggles, learning how to just talk with people and see them at face value and not rushing over what they feel and what they're going through, and just connecting with them, showing that there's a realness, it's a humanness to experiencing Jesus as well, that he wants us to come exactly where we're at, but he loves us so much that he won't leave us where we're at. And so I think just I'm very passionate about people's stories. I want to ask questions. I want to know, what was your upbringing like? What are you walking through now? Why do you think this way? What, tell me more about like your family history or whatever it is. I think just delving into seeing and knowing a person and where they're at and what they're going through, and not rushing people and forcing people to see things the way you see. And I think I had to get more comfortable at sitting at a table of people that did think differently than me, that did look differently than me, that had gone through different experiences than me. And that has shaped me and formed me into, I think, a better individual.
Mm-hmm. So just to follow up on that, let's say you've sat with somebody for a while and they're sitting with you and, they're like, man, April, there's something different. I've heard you talk about Jesus and my identity, being, daughter of the king or whatever, and that I'm valued and all these different things. But what's the deal about Jesus? What would you say to her? If there's somebody listening right now who's going, what is the gospel? Like, what is it? Would you speak to that? Yeah.
I would say the way I describe it is, in a personal way for me, is my whole life I thought because Jesus was this perfect person, right? Like this sinless man and God all in one, that my life had to be perfect. And for so long, my life, when I looked at it, was never perfect. It was just this messy room. And so I felt like if I even wanted to delve into a relationship with Jesus, my room had to be cleaned up. I had to come to him perfect, until I had an experience with him where I realized he didn't even see the mess. He just saw me. He doesn't expect us to come perfect to him. And the reality is that he takes all of that where we can't perform or measure up in any way, and all that pressure, he takes all of that away from us, all of our things that we're going to get wrong. It says, while we were still sinners, he died for us because he loves us so much. And so he wanted to take the pain, the hardships, the difficulties, so that we could have a life, eternal life, and life abundantly. And so I think for anyone asking, like, who is Jesus and what is that to me personally, it's our Savior, it's our Lord. And the reality is it's okay to come with, I have no idea what this looks like, and I don't even know where to go next. But the reality is if you look at your life, like, are you satisfied? Like, the things that you're going to, is it working for you? Is it making you, feel better about yourself or about how you're living your life? Because at the end of the day, it's like, how do you go to bed at night? Are you crying yourself to sleep every night? Like, are you satisfied? And what are you going to satisfy you? And ultimately, Jesus is the only one that can satisfy, and it's that choice. But I think when people get to that point of wanting to discover that, for themselves, it's walking it with them and knowing what that looks like, but knowing he just wants to do life with you, and it's the source of our life. It's that guidance for us in how we walk that out, and that we're not alone, and we get invited into something so much bigger than ourselves, a purpose that we could have never planned for ourselves.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Olivea, do you have any final thoughts or questions before we ask that final one we always ask at the end?
As of right now, I don't really have any, but I bet you right when we end, I probably will. It's always like that.
Well, I think this has been a great conversation.
Yeah.
I've really appreciated you, April, showing up here late in the evening when I'm sure this is probably a special time for you and your husband. Final question, we always ask the same thing. The Finding Something Real podcast is about a journey towards something real. Real is an acronym for restoration, eternity, authenticity, and love. All things that as believers, we know we can find in relationship with Jesus Christ. Restoration, eternity, authenticity, and love. Which of those 4 things stands out to you the most in your life right now, and why?
I would say restoration. I think that sums up my entire testimony of what God has done in my life and what He has repeatedly done. Specifically, one of the areas is for such a long time, I was just sending all these inappropriate messages out to people I didn't know, just trying to receive any type of love or affirmation or to be seen, just an imitation I was settling for. And the crazy thing is now I get to use the same hands that would send those messages to write blogs, to create questions for podcast episodes, to create messages that I get to preach. So the Lord has just restored all the things that the enemy tried to stop and block, to completely give me a platform from my pain to help reach other women, to bring that healing and restoration. And so I love restoration. I believe in it wholeheartedly. I think there's nothing broken, too far gone, too messy that the Lord can't step into the picture and completely transform.
Love it. I love it a lot. Olivea, April, Biondolillo. Thank you so much. Now, how do you say it real fast?
Biondolillo.
Biondolillo.
You did it great. Yes.
Perfect.
Does it mean anything? Does it mean anything?
That's a great question, Olivea. I have no idea. Why would you put me on the spot like that?
Well, thank you both for being on here. Thank you so much. Until next time.